Hello and welcome to MIP TV, and with me as ever is our erstwhile librarian, the man who has a polymathic knowledge of the world of psychotherapy, Mr. Bob Cooke. And we got this is going to be the first of two books, 44th and 45th. We're going to do the 45th in the next episode. But there's one thing in common, and that's the author. Very popular author, isn't it, Bob?
Yes, this is one of my, I say heroes, but somebody I really like. I've got all his books he's written, and I tried to get him to come over to Manchester probably about a year ago, but he's given up travelling. But anyway, his name's Irvin Yalom. I think one of the best known existential therapists of our time. He's written many books. His first one was Love's Executioner.
Yes,
which is a series of his fables from his many clients that he worked from.
Yeah. That's a really popular book, and I remember reading that as a student and thinking it's just so honest.
82, I think.
Yeah.
Time ago, very long time ago.
Yeah.
That was a fab book. But this book called Gift of Therapy. I think it's Gift of Therapy. Is that the Gift of Therapy? Yeah. And I'm not sure when it came out, but it was probably, was it 2008 or something like that? It's more nearer. It's certainly not. I think I read it about 4 years ago, so perhaps it's later 2011 or something like that. But it's a fabulous book, and it's really a legacy of his. That's why he wrote it, because as he got into his 70s, he decided to write this book as a legacy for tips, if you like, to the new therapists coming along.
Yeah, he's very good at that. I know when I've taught students, they've taken a lot away from the work of Yalom. So I wonder what tips the Gift of Therapy bestows on all of us, Bob.
Yeah, I'll pick a few out. Okay, so he has 84 tips, and therefore he has 84 chapters.
There you have it.
So each of these tips are chapters. And some of the chapters are just 1 page long, and then you've got other chapters which go on for 3 or 4 or 5 pages. But the book's, I think it's about 150 pages, very readable. And I reread it again on holiday. I've just come back off holiday. I've been in the Caribbean, actually. That's probably why I look more brown today, Rory.
Yes.
But anyway, the first tip I like to the budding therapist, if you like, is the idea that the relationship is a co-created relationship, and that we are fellow travelers.
Yes.
That the two of us are fellow travelers within the therapeutic encounter.
Yeah. It's sometimes a neglected idea, isn't it? With all the theory and the density of theory, certainly in TA. But that's the reality of it, isn't it? That we're a kind of co-journey person.
Yeah, he calls fellow travelers, which I really like.
Yeah, a Sputnik.
Yes. I really like the idea that we are, both of us, fellow travelers in the journey of life for this moment in time.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the nub of it, isn't it? Therapeutically, it's not being an expert or a pontificator of knowledge. It's just about escorting the client through their journey of the existential journey of life.
Yeah, my daughter was obsessed with Doctor Who. I remember myself. My Doctor Who was Tom Baker back in the 70s. Shows my age, and I think Jessica, who's 19, her Doctor Who was David Tennant.
Yes,
but the idea of the journey with a fellow traveller, travelling through different epochs in time.
Yes,
as Patricia Clarkson says, intrapsychic chunks of time.
Yes,
is a really lovely concept.
It is. And it's interesting because I was reading Clarkson's book, The Therapeutic Relationship, just the other day, and she makes reference to the relationship being almost like cousins, people who know each other, but are not intimately involved. They've got a knowledge of each other. Yeah, and that's the key thing, isn't it? It goes back to the dodo bird theory, doesn't it? Sol Rosenberg and
Mm.
all therapies are equal. It's the quality of the relationship. Yeah.
Oh, without that. So that's my, I would say my number one tip, not in particular linear order, but I really like the idea that we're following.
Yes.
Another tip he gives to budding therapists is the idea of empathy.
Yes.
And that we need to get into the skin, if you like, of the fellow traveller. And we need to, and it's taken me years, Rory, and I don't know how good at it I still am, which is the idea of leaving out assumptions.
Yes.
Now, that is not an easy task.
No.
But if I had to say one of my personal tips, it would be to get away from assumptions and to attempt, and I think the intention is the part for me, to enter the frame of reference through empathy of the person, of the fellow traveller inside, to really use that empathic transaction to get into the skin, if possible, of the client.
Yeah, I agree, Bob, and it's interesting. I was giving a lecture on the 6 necessary and sufficient conditions, Roger's idea of therapy, the therapeutic relationship, effectively, and the one thing is the suspension of judgment, which encompasses, I think, assumptions.
Oh, Rory, absolutely.
To
get away from assumptions.
Yeah.
Very hard to do, actually.
It is. It's probably the hardest discipline to embrace, because we're naturally curious people, and human beings naturally try to join the dots up. That's how we're wired. And to suspend that, it's a particular form of discipline, I think.
It's a wonderful skill, though.
It is,
because and I think empathic transactions is perhaps the basic tool to enable that process to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And empathy is, the research has said again and again, it's the most powerful arbiter of change, just being understood and heard.
True. So a third tip, which I've put my glasses on to read this, is it's an interesting one. But, I was thinking, if I was passing tips on to budding therapists or young therapists, this would be here. And that is to, and I'll qualify this, and so does Yalom, staying in the here and now.
Yes.
Now, in the age of transference, of course, because we talk about transference a lot, which is stepping into the transferential relationship, and like a traveller of time, we may go back into different epochs, like I said. However, a good friend of mine, Karen Burke, who works as a trainer from our institute, is a Gestalt psychotherapist.
Yeah.
And she's always talking to me about staying in the here and now and using the transference in the here and now. And the new relational transactional analysts, from following the Hardigan model, staying in the here and now, would also say the same thing, using the transference in the here and now and being real, as authentic as you can in the here and now.
Yeah, and that sense of, if there's a transferential rift appearing, or a transferential wormhole.
That's a good idea.
You can address it, in the here and now. You can actually say to a client, maybe, I heard you say that, but I wonder who you think it is.
Yes, because actually I'm not your father.
Yeah, exactly.
I know you may feel like I'm your father.
Yes.
Perhaps we can discuss that, but actually I'm not. And how does that information impact you?
Yeah.
So you stay in the here and now. That's a very skillful way of working, but I think Yalom has a really good point in terms of the authenticity of the relationship being in the actual room.
Yeah, I mean, that's what really comes over, it being in a place of truth and authenticity. Yeah, well, I mean, these tips are really good. I mean, I think they're universal kind of.
I've got one other. I mean, there's so many. But
go on.
We've got, just for I can't go for, but a fourth I do want to talk about. Just very briefly. He talks about the art of self-disclosure.
That's always a tricky one, isn't it, Bob?
Yeah, and he talks about the real usefulness of self-disclosure. And of course, he does in another chapter go on and talk about the pitfalls of self-disclosure. However, in the light of authenticity, transparency, being there, he talks about the power of self-disclosure with intention and thoughtful in terms of being for the client, not for yourself, not for your own ego.
Yeah.
The needs of the client.
Yeah, and it is interesting. It's one of the. I was talking about this on the podcast the other day, and it's one of the things that I think one of those skills and attributes that's developed as a maturing practitioner. It's not one that's ever really taught in training. No. I think it's one that you kind of come to with wisdom and maturity, because you have to weigh up self-disclosure. Who's it for? Is it for me? Is it for the ego, or is it really to help build a relationship? Yeah,
I think Rory, that's absolutely it.
Yeah.
Absolutely it. Who is this share for?
Yes.
Is it for the client in terms of their treatment, or is it really about my own needs and ego?
Yeah.
And it should always be in the service of the client.
Absolutely.
And Yalom goes, I think he spends 3 chapters on it, goes out of his way to reiterate that.
Yeah. And I think I think self-disclosure is a really, 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 really tricky one. And when it's done well, it's really facilitative and really develops a relationship. And when it's done poorly, it can fracture or disengage someone, and it's not easily taught, because it's a meaningful thing. It's not like a question or a paraphrase or a reflection or those clinical skills. It's intersubjective, very, very tricky. It relies virtually on who you are and who the client is at that moment, I think.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. And done correctly, extremely potent.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. What a way to finish off book review 44.
Fantastic book.
So what we'll do is, as always, we'll put a link down below if you want to buy it. Click on it. Bob doesn't get paid for these reviews. The publishers don't publish them or give them anything free. More's the pity, I suspect. Yes. And check the link out. Great book. I've read it, and it is really phenomenal book. So without further ado, Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you.